welcome Andy Alvarez and Sofia Garza-Barba. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're gonna just jump right into it. What do you think, Les?
Let's jump right into it.
All right.
Oh my God.
Since we started with Andy, let's start with you. Tell us a little bit about your film.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm really excited for the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. So is a story about a mother and a daughter that are going through a very tumultuous time, especially during a climate change kind of riddled world. In 2042, the world is riddled in climate change, and it's very dangerous to go outside without wearing a hazmat suit. I will say we shot this and came up with this idea before a pandemic, so it became very poignant right now. But yeah, it's about this. It's a grounded story. It's a grounded sci-fi relationship between a mother and a daughter, and how they kind of cope with the isolation of just being themselves, like with only each other during this difficult time. And it's about this young little girl who wants to see the sun, who has never seen the sun for her, her whole life. So that's the gist of that short.
Marisol? Baby, can you hear me?
I love what Andy is how Andy's talking about her film. I know why you brought us together, in this podcast, because my film is it's called Soy Un Vampiro, I'm a Vampire. And it's about a little girl who is living through the pandemic, but her parents have kept a secret from her. So the parents, because they want to protect her, they're not telling her the truth. So that actually backfires, because she's actually thinking that she's turning into a vampire. And, with all the things that happened during the pandemic, I don't know how it was in Philadelphia, but over here in California, you went to the grocery store and there were like no meat, no toilet paper, nothing. Like there was nothing. So, this story kind of is through the eyes of a child, of a child that is kind of like hiding in the dark, because she's locked in her house. She can't go out. She hasn't seen the sun for a while. So yeah, that's pretty much a little bit about my film. Yeah.
Sospecho que me estoy convirtiendo en vampiro. Si nadie me dice cómo sobrevivir, estaré en serios problemas.
For yours, Sofia, you have both parents and the child's a little girl, and yours, Andy, features just a mother and daughter relationship. I wonder, what is the role of each? Like how important was it to have, just for you, Andy, for example, how important was it for you to just have one parent leading this child? Like what made you create that dynamic for your story?
That's a great question. So a little bit about me as a person that kind of influenced this story is I came to Canada as a refugee from Colombia. We landed as immigrants who were rejected asylum in the States. And from a very young childhood with my two brothers and my parents, it was just us. It was just us against this new world, whatever culture, North America was. So family has always been this very central thing in my life. And through all of my shorts before Soul, they were dramatic, they weren't genre, but they were all had very heavy themes of family. For Soul, the reason I changed it up, because I wanted to try a different genre like sci-fi rather than drama. The reason I changed it up is because I remember, I know I can name so many sci-fi movies that, sorry, do you guys hear that? It's like this lawnmower outside. I don't know if, okay. I can name so many sci-fi movies that it's just a father and a son or a father and a daughter. Mm-hmm. And for me, I mean, my mother taught me so much, and she still is teaching me so much. And she's a very resilient woman that I look up to. My father has also taught me so much. And like, I know, so like my dad's very, I guess, handsy and very like, he can fix a motor from nothing, and he can make things and tinker. And I wanted to put both of my parents into one parent and into one role, because a lot of single mothers have to do that. And I wanted to change the narrative of a father and a son, or a father and a daughter in a sci-fi, because, you know, moms have to do so much more in terms of if they're just alone, you know, kind of raising a child. So with my co-writer, Martin Calvo, we built these two characters to kind of play off each other. And it was really important for us emphasis on an African Canadian family as well, because, you know, we don't see that enough in genre films. So I think right from the beginning, right from us coming up with a log line, coming up with a title, it was important that I was like, it needs to be a mother and a daughter, and they need to both depend on each other. But we also have to find out why it's so important for Marisol, the young daughter, to not go outside. And it's because the mother loses her husband, who is the father of Marisol, outside in this dangerous world. So the reason that she has all these rules, the reason she's so guarded, is because she lost her only support system, which was her husband. Mm-hmm. So there's a little bit of backstory that's developed later in the short, but for us, it was really important that I wanted to see two strong women from two different, you know, ages to kind of go at it each other and kind of change a little bit of the rules with genre, you know?
Awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Sophia, with yours, you also have really strong parent roles where they're also setting the rules and keeping the kid in the dark, but in a very, very different way. And it's, you know, I was telling Les, it was like, it's very Wes Anderson, the way you style the characters, the way you reveal things, the drama or the dramatics in the design, in the costuming, and even in the reactions, the father's mustache, or even the font in the newspaper. So for your story, how important was it for the parents to kind of be this like authoritative figure for the child?
Well, I think that, you know, I think that like I actually agree with what Andy was saying about like changing genre a little bit, like, because you always see, you know, male, you know, either a little boy or a little girl, but with a father. Mm-hmm. I think that if, you know, in this short, the dad is very like, you know, he's just there, he's just sitting, he doesn't really care. And the mother is a strong, you know, role model in the family, and she's the one that sets all the rules, you know. I wanted to put, you know, this strong female, you know, setting the rules in the house. She's the one that like goes out to the supermarket, but also is the one that brings home the bacon, you know. And the father's just there reading the newspaper, being, you know, I don't know, boring, I guess. And yeah, I mean, I think that I forgot what was the question. I'm sorry. I know I my brain thinks too much, and sometimes I just like start speaking and I don't know what I'm saying anymore.
Get it? No, you definitely answered my question. So I wanted to know just, in terms of the role that the parent played in blocking the information for the little girl and kind of setting these boundaries where she, you know, she doesn't know what's going on, but she knows that something has changed, or like she can't, you know, she's restricted. And you explained it wonderfully about the parents in that relationship.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, there's something like behind the lines that kind of like sometimes as a child, you know, I think that parents, especially in Mexico, I mean, I grew up in Mexico. I was born and raised there, and there were so many times where my parents hid things from me because they loved me and they wanted to protect me, you know. But you know, I created stories in my head, you know, and I think that one of the things about the characters in this film is that, you know, I think that sometimes hiding things from people because you don't want to hurt them being, ends up being worse, you know, because at the end, you know, I don't want to spoil it, but I mean, you know what happened, but maybe Andy will check it out. But yeah, so you know, I think that it backfires when you start hiding things from your children, you know. And I think that children have such a big imagination that, you know, they're going to start creating the stories in their head. And if there's no communication, you know, with your parents or with your children, you know, then, you know, everybody's going to be living a different world for a moment, you know.
Yeah.
Transparency is definitely necessary. So, and that's resonates as a theme in between both of your films.
Yeah.
Les, you have anything you want to ask the ladies?
Well, I wanted to piggyback on what Andy was saying about single parenthood and how it doesn't have to be a single parent. Actually, that dynamic can exist in a couple as well. I mean, you know, I have a 5-year-old. I'm married, and I'm not saying I'm a bad dad by any, you know, but my daughter is always going to her mom, like even if when I'm always after her, and actually my wife tells me like you're trying too hard, but like you know, she's got this thing where it's always like mom, 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 and it's heavy on my wife, you know, like it's very heavy on my wife. So she feels that extra weight that I'm not gonna lie, like a lot of times I don't feel it, you know, I don't feel that extra weight that she has. So that's very interesting to explore it from the, you know, the way you have in your film. And for Soy Un Vampiro, first of all, I'm looking forward to watching it because I didn't get that block yet, so I'm going to be watching that. But I really loved, you mentioned Wes Anderson. For me, I really love silent films, and it felt very like silent film style to me, you know, like all the stylistic choices and all the things. Like it reminded me of Trip to the Moon, like the way like the poofs with the smokes and all that happened. So but I'm really interested in hearing from y'all about you know, because Andy mentioned we want to tell these stories, and I want to hear more about the continuation of those stories, or if you're trying to deviate into other cultures, or you know, your feelings regarding like this moment where we like people want to hear more from us, but at the same time it's like, you know, do you feel like you're being put in a box, or do you feel like you're very open and you're starting to do a lot of the things that you want to do?
Sophia, do you want to take this one?
Sure. I mean, I think that I've been always put in a box, to be honest. And ever since I moved to Los Angeles, I feel like I'm in limbo, you know, because I'm between two countries, because I still work in Mexico as well, but I work here too. So I'm in limbo. And when I want to do something in Mexico, they sometimes like, oh, she has a different style. But then when I'm here, they're like, oh, she doesn't know what, you know, I know that I have a unique voice, and I think that sometimes sometimes people expect certain things from Latino directors. They think that films have to be made a certain way, or the characters have to be a certain way, and I disagree with that. I think that if I consider myself a director like that bends genres. I mean, I love horror and I love fantasy. I think I would say I'm more of a fantasy, dark fantasy type of gal, but I do horror as well. But I also like bending genres. I like drama as well. So I think that if in filmmaking we can blend genres, I think that we should also be able to blend cultures, and I think that that's one of the things that it's difficult, because I think that sometimes people expect you to do certain type of movies and anything, and then they're like, oh, you did that, a Latina did that. It's like, yes, and I'm like a full-blown Latina, like, so it's just, people expect so much from us, and it's hard, because sometimes it feels like limbo.
No, I totally agree. I mean, in Canada, the climate in the Vancouver industry, as well as like the film industry here in Canada, it's a little bit different. And the reason I say that is because there isn't a lot of Latin American talent in Vancouver. In Toronto, there's an abundance of it, and I wish I was there. And I wish that same kind of talent pool was also here. But for example, like, I wasn't particularly being put in a box for Soul. It was my first attempt at as a genre. But it was, for example, it was a film that was made through a competition, and they were giving me access to a casting director. And again, like I mentioned, I wanted to cast an African Canadian lead for both the actors roles. And I remember being on the call with some producers and other people who were in charge of the bigger production itself. They were like, just so you know, you might not actually find the right talent based on the skin color you're looking for. Because in Vancouver, there isn't that much diverse talent that hasn't really been found, which is really unfortunate. In Toronto, it's a different story. It's very diverse there, and it's really, it's really nice to be able to cast from there because you have a lot of options. Whereas here it didn't. But that being said, that didn't stop me, because I remember people telling me, it's like, you might want to open that up. You might not want to make them African Canadian. You might want to make them, just different ethnicity. And I was like, no, they need to be Black. And I wanted them to be Afro Latinx, and I wanted that. Unfortunately, we couldn't get that, but I knew that I wanted them to be darker skinned. And thankfully, we found Aria Birch, who was the young daughter, and we found Rukia Bernard, who fell in love with the script. And it was as a filmmaker, I had to like put my foot down. I remember being like, I don't want to settle for anyone else other than the people I like wrote for. And it's not that this film was about Black experience. It wasn't about their adversity, or, it's just a story about a mother and a daughter, but I wanted to put two women of color on the screen. And that was something that as a woman of color, I had to fight for. So in terms of being put in a box, that's what I felt like I had to like push out of that box. As a filmmaker, my first short was a horror film. And that was something I really liked. And I really liked making people scared. But then I realized I had a lot of different genres I wanted to explore. I wanted to explore drama, and that's what I did in my first two shorts. And a lot of those dramas, kind of like Sofia, they were told through the perspective of a younger child, because that's what I grew up with. I grew up seeing a lot of adult things, like my parents going through immigration, and but only me seeing it from my perspective. I'm like, why are they crying? Why are they fighting? Why can't I see my cousins? Why can't, why am I getting bullied for not knowing this new language? So there's so much I could tell from my experience, just like I know Sofia can tell from her own unique Latina experience. And for the future, I mean, I just want to keep trying something new. I don't want to be put in a box. I want to, like right now, I'm working on my first feature, and that's a thriller, suspenseful romance like movie, and it has nothing to do with Latinx people. It's just about this. It's actually based on true story. It's about this woman who was born in the Polish mob, and she's kind of exiled at 16 and becomes a hit woman. And like, you know, there's just so much that goes into that. But then also I only read fantasy novels and I want to like reboot Xena the Warrior Princess in like Game of Thrones style. And that, you know, so like there isn't just one thing I want to do. And I think that we need to also stop looking at our own like Latina, so this is what I am. Like, I just want to create these stories because they inspired me when I was younger and I want to be a part of that.
It's interesting you say that because we actually interviewed someone who said the difference will be that you're going to add a different sabor to it. You're going to add different energy and a different passion to it that another filmmaker from another culture may not. And so, you know, that's what you're given to that world and to those characters. So I'm looking forward to seeing this feature.
I'm excited. It's yeah, like Les was saying, and I think it was Ruben Plat who said that. But yeah, it's your aesthetic, right? So because we're not necessarily from here or wherever you're from, your aesthetic and your eye and your, you know, what looks to you like fear that may not register to everyone else, but that fear face that you're looking for is new, you know, and it's really beautiful to see like a different perspective of what, you know, what emotion is and what, you know, what an extreme close-up looks like to you may be very different to me.
Oh, absolutely.
It's really, yeah, it's fun. And
yeah.
Sophia, what about you? What excites you, and what did you want your characters to be? Did it end up being what you wanted?
You're asking me?
Yes.
What do you mean if I?
So in terms of like casting your film and characters that you have, did you end up with what you wanted? Was it difficult? Because you're in LA, so you have.
Well, I actually flew to Mexico. So I hadn't been in Mexico for like the entire pandemic. And I really missed my family. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to fly over there and I'm going to try to do this film. I literally wrote that short film during lockdown. And I just had like, you know, a group of friends that wanted to help me out and like a small amount of money saved. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to shoot this in Mexico when I go visit my family, obviously following COVID protocols. And I found Elisa. Elisa Garzate is the little kid. She's actually the daughter of a good friend of mine. And she, you know, when I met her, I mean, I've known her for a while, but she wasn't an actress. She just said that one day I want to be an actress. So I shared the script with her and she was spot on. We actually did auditions and there were over 30 girls that showed up, and some of them were great, but you know, Elisa was just spot on, and I was so happy to bring her on board just because I thought that it would be a really, you know, I just think that I saw talent in her, and I just respected that. And you know, after this project, she went on and did other short films, and she's like, you know, I'm just happy to, you know, introduce her into this world that she's just very excited. And she was a superstar in the short. And you know, the other two actors that were recommended from some friends of mine. And yeah, I mean, I was happy with the people that I casted. It was nice. Yeah.
Did you shoot in Mexico?
Yeah, we shot in Mexico. And
during the pandemic?
During the pandemic, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I just thought that, like, you know, I wrote that script during lockdown, and it's because of COVID-19. It just made sense to shoot it during the pandemic because, you know, like my grandma told me, she's like, I lived so long and I've never lived through something like this in my life. So I wanted this to be, you know, my, not my memory of it, but like something positive that came out of this lockdown, you know. So yeah, I mean, we shot it during the pandemic. We shot it in October, and you know, by November we blocked it and it was done. So it was pretty quick.
Wow. What
Yeah.
about you, Andy? Can you talk a little bit about what you were mentioning earlier about the new connection because of COVID to your film?
Yeah, so actually, for example, okay, so Soul was a part of a competition in Vancouver. It's called the Crazy Eights Film Competition, where they choose 6 filmmakers who pitch, and they choose those films to go forward and be made. And a bunch of the community comes together in Vancouver and kind of makes these films happen. But the catch is you have 8 days to make the film. So you shoot in 3 days, and then you have 5 days of post,
Wow.
where you edit, you color, you mix, you sound, everything. And it's like it's a film race basically. But there's no like winner of like a race. You just, the top 6 get to make the film. Soul was one of the films, and it was only because of like in the Vancouver independent film community here that we were able to make it. Like you look at it and you're like, oh, this is probably like $20,000. It was made with $6,000. And it was because people just kind of came in, donated their time, no one got paid. Just like all of the special effects were real on set. There was no visual effects. Everything was just done in front of the camera. And we got to the top 6 the first, like I think it was like January 3rd of 2020, and we got to camera like the first week of February. And then we finished the film like that after that week, 8 days after. And I think it was a week after, like right before March, that the world was just like shut down. So it was such a close call. But what was really great is that, like, I don't know, it was just like a really great coming together of a community, and we kind of made this film out of almost nothing. I remember us building an airlock and having to ask questions to like science people and science majors, and like email scientists and be like, okay, how would this airlock look like? How do we sanitize a hazmat suit? And we watched Interstellar, we watched everything that we could to like make it, you know, futuristic. And yeah, everything was poor man's process. And I don't know what the question was anymore. And I just, there's a lot of going on.
Well, the connection to COVID, you said
Yeah.
that after making your film and COVID happening, like that it took it to another level for you.
That's true. Okay, so the film they have to wear hazmat suits in order for them to go outside. We wanted an angle of climate change because before COVID, that was the biggest, I would think, theme that the world was kind of going through. And we were like, it's a ticking time bomb. We're losing time. And I was like, well, I want to make a film about climate change, but I wanted to be set in the future. And I wanted to be about grounded in a relationship that was human. And I wanted to be, you know, a reality that we could possibly face where we are no longer able to go outside without wearing a hazmat suit because of this photosensitive smog or whatever. So that was the science behind the story. As we filmed the movie, as we finished it, and once the world shut down because of COVID-19, it became very apparent through festivals that we weren't being accepted into a lot of those festivals, like especially like the first couple months of 2020, because we were so close to reality. Nobody wanted to watch something that they were experiencing. People wanted an escape, and that became very clear. And it wasn't until later this year people were like, yeah, okay, we'll watch something. But I think what's nice is that you can compare it to COVID-19 because of the hazmats, because of the ultra protection you have to do, and because of the relationship between a mother wanting to protect her child from going outside. But also, you know, I think it was because I made it the angle of climate change. It's like such a real thing that could happen, but you know, COVID-19 happened. So there's almost like this connection. It's like you could almost, if you were to take out climate change, like you could almost substitute COVID-19, and it kind of became coexisting. So I feel like this movie hit too close to home. So that's where I feel like the connection kind of came through, but it was never intentional. We were like using the writer and I were like, we either take this as a marketing ploy or we just hope that people see it as climate change.
In terms of just that, Sophia, I know that I don't want to give away too much. It's hard to talk about your film without giving it away.
It's fine.
So let's talk about your choices in terms of just making it so light and fun, because although it's in the horror genre, it's very light, it's very fun, and it's also heartwarming. You fall in love with the character, with the lead. She's very funny, and she's very blunt. And so that makes it funny too, because you know as the viewer what's going on, and then you also see her interpretation, and it makes it even more ridiculous. So there's a lot of layers there. So tell me, in terms of that character and just the scenario of protecting her, what made you make it a more fantasy and just humorous angle to your horror?
Well, I mean, I think first of all, like, you know, as a director, I'm, you know, attracted to that type of humor. I feel like sometimes we all take life too serious. And obviously, I mean, I'm not laughing about the pandemic. I mean, I think that it's been horrible. I mean, I've lost family and friends and everything. But I also think that there's always has to be a side of things where you know you see it, like the light of it, you know, the funny parts of it, like the, you know, the toilet paper and all those things, you know, that are kind of funny, you know. I mean I don't know what you guys lived through, but like I remember going to the grocery store and like people were like pulling toilet paper from each other, and I'm like, are you serious? You know, come on, guys. Like, I don't know. I'm just I like breaking taboos. I think that, you know, most of the films that I do, even if they're horror or fantasy, I try to add some humor or some lightheartedness in everything. You know, even if I'm talking about death, you know, I try to talk about it in a way where it's more it's easier to digest, you know. So yeah, I mean, the choices that I made for Soy Un Vampiro, I think it goes by hand with who I am. I'm very witty. You know, I like jokes, good jokes. And I like a lot of color, and you know, I think that the character is very innocent, and I wanted to show that through the through the film. And also I feel like, you know, I know that there's a lot of films out there that, you know, were shot during the pandemic, but I wanted to make a film that was a little bit more on the comical side of things. I mean, not comical, but you know what I mean.
Lighthearted. Yeah.
I think it's like a genre bending film, because it's also, it has drama. I mean, if you look at it closely, I mean, it starts off, you know, very light, and then it goes into, you know, this phase of like fantasy, and then it hits drama, and then it goes horror, you know. So it's like it's a blend of genres, kind of like 2020, you know. 2020 was, you know, ups and downs, and you know, and all around. You know. So I think that that's what I wanted to do, you know. I think 2020 for me was really hard, and I'm sure that it was hard for so many people. I have a child myself, so you know, even her, you know, she at the beginning she didn't know what was going on, and then I'm like, listen, this is what's going on. I didn't want to lie to her, you know. And yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the things that I feel like, that tone,
Mhm.
I was trying to go for what 2020 did to us. Yeah.
No, well done, definitely. There was one last thing that I wanted to ask you that I mentioned earlier, but Andy spoke about it in her film. But in terms of the design, obviously, who did your production design, and what why did you make those choices? Because they're very bold choices. Your props are very well placed, they're very specific. So who handled that?
So my team in Mexico, her name is Diana Coral. Um, she, she's amazing. She did an amazing job. I try to, give her like a color palette and like kind of like a style. Because I think that, for the type of cinema that or films that I like, they have to follow like a certain, tone throughout, even, in production design. So I think that we worked really well together, trying to figure out the best color choices that, kind of could fit into this like Beetlejuice style, look. So yeah.
Awesome.
Now, what about you, Andy? Have you visited back home, or are you have you pretty much been in Vancouver, or what's your background in terms of the
Life.
family?
Yeah, I mean, so I've visited back home since us coming to Canada. Like right now, it's not so great because of the protests that are going on right now. But that being said, like a couple of years back, I think like 6 or so years back, we went back, and thankfully our issue, that the reason we were running from, had kind of dissipated because there was a treaty signed between the guerrilla and the government and the other party, I forgot. But I've been back home, and honestly, my parents raised me with the Colombian culture. I was raised speaking Spanish at home, and they never let me forget it. And my parents always only speak Spanish to me, and my siblings and I still consider ourselves Colombian. I still have my passport. I still have I dual citizenship, and I'm very proud to be a Colombian and then also Canadian. I do acknowledge that I think being in Canada has opened a lot of doors for me in terms of being a filmmaker and being able to get my stories out there. And, in the future, I hope to be recognized as also a Colombian filmmaker, where I can go back home, make movies in Colombia about their culture, about what I love so much about that country, and, bring it to the world. I think for me, a lot of the driving force is I'm so tired of seeing shows like Narcos. I'm so tired of seeing shows that, emphasize and glorify violence and the drug world in Latin America, specifically my country. And I mean, like when I left the country, when I left and we seeked refuge, and my parents and I went through a very difficult time, I personally, as a 7-year-old, only remember the great moments. My parents were like, oh, we did this. This is like, we didn't have heating in our first winter in Canada. And for me, I was like, oh, it's a sleepover every day. Like we all get to huddle together and sleep together. Whereas my parents, where we're going through like, oh my God, how are we going to keep this going for so long? So I just remember having so many great memories. And I just like, kind of like what Sofia is saying, is like, sometimes you only really take the good, or you try to find entertainment in, difficult times. And that's what really is also making stories. It's, storytelling is to entertain others, and that's where a lot of my inspiration comes from. So, I want to make stories that don't glorify the violence. I want to make stories about real people in Colombia, and just them being them, and but also getting them out into the world, and let that be known. Well, Colombia is known for their beautiful mountains and their culture, and like my dad was born in a very small rural part of Colombia, and I've never once seen a movie made out of that. Like that small culture that is very niche. So there's lots of untapped potential. And I know that there's lots of other filmmakers are in that same path. So yeah.
There's a lot of untold stories, essentially, is what you're saying. This is, Eunice, this is like a recurrent theme in all the cafecitos we've done.
Definitely.
So much stories, like our culture is
Yeah.
rich in stories, and you got to get them out there.
We have to get them out there, and we need, I know that we need the support. We need to support each other. Another theme that has come up is kind of like the collaborative nature of needing or just needing to create your own kind of crowd, your own, finding your people and working with them so that you can create your art.
Absolutely. I also think it's really important, like, I make a point, even though I do really like them generally, like to support shows that are made by Latin American, like for example, One Day at a Time. You know, when Gloria Calderon Kellett was rallying for her show to be brought up again or be renewed again after Netflix canceled it, I was like, you know, we got to push for them because it's her opening the doors for other Latinx creators. Yeah. And then there's like Eva Longoria's pioneering a bunch of new shows, and I'm just like, this is great. We just have to, as Latinx, keep pushing and keep supporting and be those viewers and like get those numbers going, because it's the only way for us to get our stories out there is, you know, people, if we show Netflix and Amazon and everybody that is big, and we show the production companies that there's an audience for Latinx stories, then they'll keep investing money into it, because that's ultimately what our goal is to get these untold stories out there.
Definitely. Wow, this has been a really, really good conversation. I'm really excited. I want to know, what is next for you? Like, what are you excited? You mentioned you're working on your first feature. Is that like, where are you with that? Is that still in development? Sofia, after Andy responds, please also, what is next for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think So may have been my last short, so I'm hoping to move on to the next thing, and it's called 84 Bison. It's a dramatic thriller, suspenseful romance movie about a woman who is born into the Polish mob, and she's exiled at 16. She comes to Canada and becomes a professional wrestler, hired hit woman, and also survives cancer. It's based on a true story. It's based on a memoir, so there's a lot of really great elements about it that I loved, and the person who wrote it trusted me with her story. So that's where my goal is right now. The feature film script is done. My manager and I are trying to get it out there, trying to get it financed currently, so it's still in a development stage. I'm also writing a pilot, you know, just to try and get it out there as well. But yeah, I think for me, the next plan is to get in like on a feature film script and get that going. I have lots of features to tell, so hopefully get that going soon.
And you, Sofia?
I'm currently in development for a feature called Santos Remedios, Holy Remedies. You know, I actually presented the script and pitched it in another festival in called Sanfic, which is in Santiago, Chile. And it won an award where we won like 10% of the full production and things like that. So we're in development. So I'm really excited because, you know, it's a dark fantasy feature. So there's a lot of horror elements and drama as well. And it's a musical, so that's pretty crazy. It's about a little girl who makes a pact with La Santa Muerte to cross over to the United States to see her father. So yeah, it's a you know, a fantasy, dark fantasy with we touch themes of like migration and things like that. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm really excited. It'll be my first feature, so hopefully it doesn't fall and we keep, you know, we actually make it. But yeah, that's that's what I'm looking forward to.
Nice. Good luck to the both of you.
Thank you.
Incredible, incredible. So excited.
Thank you.
Les, do you have a wild card question?
Yes. I got a little 5-year-old peeking in through the door. Yes. What is your favorite movie that you've seen? The last movie you saw that kind of became your new favorite movie?
That's a difficult question.
You know, I think it's really funny because it's not like my new favorite, but I can't stop thinking about it. And it's Army of the Dead, the new one by Zack Snyder. I watched it last night. And, you know, I liked Zack Snyder. He's got a very, you know, unique style, but I watched the like behind the scenes and the making of that Netflix also has. But I just kind of like, I was just really, I mean, spoilers, but I really enjoyed how he told the story through the zombies as well, and kind of changed the genre a little bit. He's like, how can we change this and how can we change that? And I just really like that that you could tell he had fun with it. And I'm like, for me, I'm like, I want to get to a point where I have that creative control with Netflix and be like, I have this idea about a zombie movie. And they're like, great, go make it, you know? So like, I want to get to that level where I have the Zack Snyder kind of control, and I want to tell stories like, you know, where he just has fun behind the camera. But for me, like I just can't stop thinking about those zombies and like how he kind of changed a little bit of the genre there and how fun a lot of these characters was. And it was one of the first movies too where there were so many women characters. He didn't like fetishize them, he didn't sexualize them, he made them strong, and they fought back, and they had great action scenes, and it was just so well done in a lot of technical and a lot of story elements that I was like, yes, I applaud this, and I haven't seen that in a long time, and I was really happy about that. So that Army of the Dead, check it out.
It's cool. I don't know. It's a hard question. Like a new movie that I've watched. Can I say a series? I just watched the series that I really loved. Veneno in HBO. Oh my God. You guys should watch it. It's
amazing.
Unbelievable. Have you seen it?
Yes.
It's magnificent.
It's nothing like how you even sounds like it. It's incredible.
It's incredible. Like everything about it, it blends genres. It like everything is just beautiful. Like it made me cry and laugh and everything. You know, it's so good.
And then you're gonna go and Google like, what is this about? Is this true? Like, what happened?
Oh, it's magnificent. So yeah, I mean that's I binge watched that series like last month. So. Yeah, I loved it. So yeah.
I have to ask Sofia and I have to ask Eunice, where are you finding the energy and the time to watch? I feel like I have neither the energy nor the time to watch movies or series anymore.
I squeeze it in. I'm up late and I just squeeze it in.
Me too. Yeah, I'm a vampire. So
there you go.
Soy Un Vampiro.
I have a wild card question for you guys. You ready? What's your favorite holiday and why?
Christmas.
Why?
We have the novena, the Colombian tradition novena, which you count down the days to Christmas through like, I think a Christian ritual. But for me, that just means family. And because I grew up with just having my close-knit parents and then my brothers and I, now my young sister, like I get to see them. That's the time in the year I get to see them. And I don't know, it's just, it gets magical because they live in northern Alberta where it's just snow. And we just kind of, you know, it's a very movie picturesque. It's, you know, it is snowing outside and you you know, the food that comes with Christmas, especially in a Latin American household. You're always full and it's nice and you're just watching movies and there's nothing to do and you just, that's my favorite time of the year.
Mine is Halloween because I get to dress up. I'm still a big, like, even if I'm old, I love, you know, finding excuses to wear costumes.
You're not old, you're older. There's a difference.
Oh, okay, but like I really, really love dressing up. So yeah, costume parties for me, yeah,
Nice.
my favorite. But I do love Christmas as well because of family. Yeah.
Awesome. Les, what's your favorite?
My favorite holiday. Oh my goodness. You know what? I don't
You don't have
know if I have one or not. It's the same thing with birthdays. My wife is all about birthdays, and to me, it's like,
Yeah.
you know. So, yeah. If I knew I would tell you. I'm not gonna try and pick one now and kind of like just to answer the question. I don't have one. I'm sorry to say.
Okay, fair enough. I'm with Sophia. My favorite is definitely Halloween. I love all of the winter holidays just because you're with family, but they're not particularly my favorite. But for some reason, Halloween kicks off the family time for me. So I love Halloween because I know that then all like the next 2 months I'm gonna be with my family.
But you know what? Because I do agree with what everybody is saying. Family, that's the thing that touches my heart, because, you know, in a couple of weeks we'll be going to Puerto Rico, and I haven't been in a long time because of the pandemic. And, you know, the last time all my family lives in PR, and the last time my mom saw our daughter, she was 3 and now she's 5. So it's been a long time for abuela, you know. So for me, like, the family is the thing for sure. So it doesn't have to be a holiday. So long as I'm around my cousins, my mom, my grandparents, my aunts and uncles, like, and also for, you know, my wife's family, I love them very much. Like, so long as I'm around family, that holiday doesn't matter, you know?
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for, you know, coming on, for your time, for being so candid, and for just sharing, you know, your knowledge, your experiences, and your wants. Thank you so much. Congratulations on being recognized by the Philadelphia Latino Film Festival. I know it's very difficult. Please continue to create. Please continue to stay in contact with us. We will love, love, love to feature you, to promote you, to just share you with the community. You have a community within us, and just count on us to be your supporters.
Thank you so much for having us. This was really fun. I loved, you know, meeting you and, you know, seeing another female director here. This is awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I echo that. I have always wanted to go to Philadelphia. I grew up watching Rocky and I've always wanted to go to the statue, and every time that there's an opportunity for me to apply to a Philadelphia Latino, I do. And this is the first time I've gone in. I'm just really excited. So yeah, thank you again for having me.
Yes, thank you so much. Les, do you have anything else for the ladies before we close out?
I just want to say, hopefully we get to actually see you in Philadelphia sooner than later.
Yeah, that would be cool.
It would be really cool, yeah.
Yes, I agree.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.
Yes, you guys.
Can we take a selfie? I mean, not a selfie, a picture.
Yeah.
Sure, go for it.
Okay. Is it okay to post the picture up or not?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Cool.
Sure.
Cheese. Awesome. All right, cool.
Thank you guys so much.
We'll be in contact
Thank
soon.
you. Have a nice rest of your week.
You too.
Wow.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.